Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to MandoLessons Live. My name is Baron Collins Hill, and I'm already out of tea. Thanks all for joining in. Looks like we got a lively crew already. Great to see you all here. If this is your first time, I already saw Susan, the first timer. But if it's your first time, let me know in the chat. Let me know where you're hailing in from. If this is your first time, whatever you kind of want to chat about, I love seeing the chat light up, and struggling to keep up with it is my idea of a good time. If you haven't been here before, the way these work is it's an hour-ish of Q&A. I don't know if I'll be able to do the whole hour today, but we'll see as the time goes on. No question is too simple, no question too advanced. It's all fair game. I love hearing what's getting everybody excited, what you all are up to. Maybe you're getting out and playing a little bit again as things start to open up safely as possible. Let's see who we got here. We got Lindsay from British Columbia, William from Philly, Jim from Savannah, Georgia, Geroyd from Belfast, Ireland, Denise from Michigan, Lewis, Indiana, Tom from Bellingham, right up the road from me, Robert from Plymouth, Mass. Fairbanks, Alaska, Susan. All right, that's great. Not often we get folks from Alaska that chime in, but occasionally. Great to have you here. Betsy, good to have you here. Alan, Denise. I think I already said Denise, but I can't remember anymore. James, Edward, Ursanos, Sherry. Good stuff. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're all having a good start to your weekend, whether it's a morning or an afternoon or an evening, wherever you are. Seems like most people from North America so far, except for Geroyd that have chimed in. We got one overseas, but I bet more will pop in as we go. The way that worked, I'm going to turn down my little blooper that makes sounds every time somebody puts in a chat, including a super chat. Thank you so much from Edward. Let's get this rolling. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the ways that folks support me, whether it's through super chat or there's links in the description to PayPal, Patreon. I got a bunch of Patreon supporters here, and we have a lot of fun over on my Patreon webpage where you get access to lessons a day early. We do patron-only live streams, things like that. But whatever way people support is great. I've also got merch. I've got t-shirts and mugs and all sorts of stuff. All of the links are in the description. Not required, but greatly appreciated. And Daisy from Atlanta, good to have you here, as always. So, that first tune that I played there was Real Montreal, also known as Real Sherbrooke. Great tune. Great tune to think about arpeggios and scales. It's a scale. Is an arpeggio, a D arpeggio, scale back up, and then the B part, the first part's in G, second part's in D, the second part's almost all arpeggios. Good stuff. A lot of those French, Canadian, and Quebecois tunes have a lot of arpeggiation and scales to them, so that's a good way to kind of, scales and arpeggios can be fun if you're in the mood for practicing those, but often you can just find a tune that'll do the same thing. All right, well, let's have some questions roll in as we go along here. Great to see you all chiming in, and yeah. I'll mention that we'll play Real Montreal at the end of the hour, or whenever I have to. I don't know if I can make it all the way to the end this time, but the end will be when it is. And yeah, so we'll play that tune kind of jam along style at the end. It is good to have Denise back. She's missed a couple, but it's always nice to see your smiling screen name in the chat, Denise. Alright. Play another tune here while questions start to roll in. Something in A. I'll play a tune called Buckin Done. a cross A tune for any fiddle players, but just playing it out of standard on the mandolin as usual. Oh, now I gotta remember how it goes. Buckin Done. Uh-oh. I just had it, now it's gone. Buckin Done. There it is. B. Alright, there's a little Buckin Done. I think it's about a horse. Great tune, cross A. I should teach that tune. I gotta probably learn how to actually play it. I'm a little messy on what the notes actually are, but that's the general idea. Not too many notes going on in there, and a great time feel. Alright, a couple questions here. Has anyone ever tuned a uke to mando tuning? Yeah, I've heard of people doing that on baritone ukuleles. I think you can even get a special GDAE string set for baritone uke. I think it comes out an octave lower than a mandolin, but a friend of mine in college did that, and it was pretty cool. But maybe you can do it with a tiny ukulele too, and get it up. I imagine that the high E on a ukulele could be a little hard to get to with those nylon strings. There's also a cool instrument that I've seen. I haven't actually played one. What is it called? It's called a mandolindo or mandolindo. It's made by it's Killian Reese. What's the name of? Pono is the name of, I think, the company. Very cool looking 4-string steel strung flat top. It's kind of like a ukulele, except strung with steel strings and tuned GDAE. Looks pretty cool. I haven't played one, but they just started making them like a couple months ago. and very fun. Let's see. And Jim's already on that E string question. Used fishing line for the E string. There you go. Maybe some high test fishing line can hold up to that high E tension. Oh, and then, I'm getting out of order here. James said, on the Mandolins and Beer podcast, Daryl Anger mentioned having a ukulele in Mando tuning. Cool. And he also explained his string gauge choices, which was useful. I'll have to listen to that. Raghav from India, good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining in. Can I play the Godfather theme? Unfortunately, I can't. It's copyrighted, and I also don't know how to play it. I gotta watch it's been years since I've seen The Godfather. But I'm sure you can find some either lessons or tablature out there. Maybe ask on the Mandolin Cafe. People can help you out if you want to learn how to play it. I bet it's fairly approachable, not too hard to learn. So yeah, I'll have to check out that. If anyone doesn't know about the Mandolins and Beer podcast run by Dan Patrick, check it out. It's a super fun podcast with all sorts of great mandolin pickers, and I feel very fortunate and lucky to have been asked by Dan to do it a little, like maybe a year and a half ago now, maybe a year. Can't exactly remember, but super fun to be on there. Okay, let's see. I feel like I missed something. Oh, a request for Old Joe Clark. Can definitely do that. Oh, cool. Gruid says, Aquila, do them for soprano. Hey, Aunt Matt, good to have you back. Just in time to hear a little bit of a request for Old Joe Clark. Make it kind of medium tempo and groovy. How does this go? There it is. Uh-oh. Ah, there it is. There we go, a little bit of super groovy old Joe Clark, nice and laid back and funky. Fun to try out different tunes with different feels, see what you like. No harm in messing around a little bit, at least not as far as I'm concerned. All right, great question from Raghav, and apologies, I'm probably not pronouncing your name correctly. But how to improve your hand speed in changing chords. I think ultimately the most important thing is just to, it's something that will happen naturally. So just if you're, as long as you're listening to your own playing and noticing when you're not sort of changing chords quick enough, you'll learn over time naturally how kind of chord changes need to happen between your two hands, you know, because you have this, your right hand is doing the strum pattern and then your left hand needs to move around. Part of it is just getting comfortable with these chord shapes and, you know, making those changes a million times and kind of getting comfortable with that, so you don't need to be thinking like, okay, where's my D chord? Oh, there it is, and kind of having that pause while sort of maintaining your right hand rhythmic kind of groove. Another thing that I think will happen subconsciously, but I'll point out, is sometimes you can look at kind of what's, depending on your strum pattern in your right hand, your left hand can kind of optimize what notes it needs to hit first. So, for example, if I'm going from G to D, and my strum pattern is sort of this bass strum guitar style, as you can see, I was trying to kind of overemphasize it there, but as you change, because all I need is that bass note at first, when I get to the D chord, I don't need to worry as much about getting my middle finger to the second fret of the E string on time. So you can go G, D, because that's the note you need to hit. And then you have a little bit of time before you have to strum the whole chord. So your movement can look like this. So there can be, your hand doesn't need to move entirely all at once. And that will happen naturally as you just play more. And of course that isn't the case for all, like if you're doing these chop chords, you kind of need to move everything as a group. But I would say mostly, as long as you're kind of noticing, hey, I'm having trouble kind of working with kind of getting my hands synced up and kind of changing chords at a quicker pace, as long as you're kind of aware that that's something you need to work on, just kind of play chords a lot. There's so many tiny, kind of hard to describe little movements and moments in that, because like your left hand's doing one thing and your right hand's doing something else. And you know, what I would say maybe as well is like, keep your right hand going. Don't, as a practice exercise, don't let your right hand lose the rhythm. Because even if you don't hit the right chord, you know, if my right hand's going, it sounds better to do this. You know, I'm just hitting open strings. In any key, really. You know, even if there is a little moment of kind of not the chord, it'll sound good, but as long as you keep your right hand nice and steady. But if you prioritize your left hand too much, then you get, and you can't tap your foot to that. and it gets off track, it becomes a lot less musical. Whereas even if you're not hitting the right chord and you go G, all right, where's my D chord? There it is. Where's my C? Ah, there it is. You know, hit some open strings. It's not the end of the world. Just keep your right hand moving and get your left hand to the next chord as quickly and kind of smoothly as possible. And I think your ears will pick up on what sounds good and find ways to get your left hand to get where it needs to be at the right time. That's a great question, and it's a question I often have trouble. I should make a lesson on this because I may have in the past, but I'm always thinking about it, and because it's so many different, it's like simple concept of like changing chords, but there's so many different things going on. You know, your right hand really needs to keep that pattern. Your left hand needs to learn kind of what finger needs to go down first. Things like that will really, I think it mostly works itself out over time, but it is good to kind of think about that as well. So great question. Thank you. James says, hopefully starting 2 Luthier courses soon, so I hope to delve into the world of hybrid instruments. What are everyone's dream outliers and oddities? Would love to get some ideas of a fun project. Ooh, yeah, people should definitely chime in on that. I've got all sorts of crazy ideas. For myself, things that are kind of on my list, I've got a couple kind of weird instruments coming from Lawrence Smart, which I've mentioned in the past. A 10-string Mandocello octave mandolin. That's so C, G, D, A, E, with the C is the low kind of cello voice of the Mandocello, and the E is the high E of an octave mandolin. So an octave below this E string. I have it's currently in the shop, but I've got that Lawrence Smart 10-string mandola mandolin that I've really been enjoying. So it's like an octave below that thing. I'm also really into tenor guitars. I've thought about 5-string tenors, but those aren't. I think at this point I'm mostly interested. Tenor guitar. I think so much of the beauty of the tenor guitar is the 4-string. There are folks who play like Lowell Levenger or Grandpa Banana from the Youngbloods. Plays 5-string tenors in a very cool style. And some people will put like a low F below the C of it, kind of its own whole world. But archtop tenor guitar as well from Lawrence that I'm looking forward to. I would love a 5-string electric mandolin someday, kind of like a Tiny Moore style. With a low C on it. Too many fun things out there. But yeah, I definitely keep us posted on what you get into. A 3-course octave mandolin in a shop. So like 6 strings total. That's sort of in line. I don't know how they would have tuned it. I've thought about things like that. There's a Greek instrument called a tricordo, which is like a 6-string version of a bouzouki, or an 8-string, like the Bolbeck things. And folks like Alec Finn, the late great Irish accompanist and musician in general, would play a tricordo, where it's just D, A, D were the 3 strings. And those are the strings that I mostly spend time on as an Irish bouzouki player. So if that's what you're thinking about, that's cool. I've also thought about like GDA is an interesting idea for a 3 or 6-string instrument, because especially when I'm playing kind of like comping chords, I never hit that E string. So I'll do a lot of like, and that sort of really kind of Ted Green style minimalist chord accompaniment would be fun with just a 3-string instrument or a 6-string instrument with courses. A resonance violin as a DIY. I don't know what a resonance violin is. Or a Renaissance, maybe? Nice. Ant-Man is working on a cigar box tenor banjo. Those are very cool. Definitely keep us posted on that. Cigar box mandolin. That's a good question. I bet somebody has. Yeah, you might need to definitely do some fairly rigorous bracing on it because the mandolin's got so much tension. Nice, got some good info from Ant-Man on the cigar box mandolin. Cool, glad you're enjoying the beginner series. Electric 5-string guitar, yeah. During the old Joe Clark jam, I threw in the B part of Cluck Old Hen. Nice. Yeah, I kind of had to pause for a second there when I first started because I went into the B part of Kitchen Girl. Oh, did my No, it didn't break. It's just I kind of tried to mess around with the string tension a little bit and like put different strings on it. I was just using like stock mandola strings, and then I was using a 9.5 for the high E string. So I was playing around with gauges a little bit, and I widened out the slots, and I'm not really a professional luthier. Usually I can get away with like adjusting nut slots, but I kind of did more bad than good by trying to mess with custom gauges, and it didn't really help the sound of the instrument. So, and it also, I just brought it into a local guy here who actually also set up this mandolin, and he's gonna kind of put it back where it needs to be. Like, I know enough not to mess with anything that's not totally fixable. Like, the worst thing is he's gonna have to make a new nut. He probably will just have to like do a little work on it to kind of get it back in spec. Might do a little bit of a fret level while it's in there just to dial it in nicely. But I was trying to get fancy with it and didn't improve anything, so figure I'd send it off to the professionals. For some reason, I have a lot more luck working on like banjos and guitars. There's something about mandolins that's so small and precise and fiddly, for lack of a better word, that I tend to mess them up more. Yeah, DAD is also the mountain dulcimer tuning. Ant-Man says, do you have any lessons on more advanced chord shapes that can move easily around the neck? I think I do. I'm just going to pull up my website here, and I can point you towards some, because I can't think of them off the top of my head. What do we got here? Lessons. Probably going to be in the technique and fundamentals. Chords. So I think one thing you can use is learn every major and minor chord, the lesson in the chord section of the technique and fundamental section, which is just the classic kind of bar chord shape. And like I was saying, like, that's your classic shape, or you can use those fingers. But if you just break that down into three sets of strings, just don't think about the E string. The E string is usually pretty superfluous when it comes to chords. And then you can put more exciting stuff into the bass line. So we have, like, for example, this is an A. 2-2-4 is an A chord. And then we have 3-2-4 it can be a million different things. It can be, I'm kind of using it as like a B flat diminished, A sharp diminished, whatever you want to call it. Mostly a passing chord to get to that, which is a minor. It's like the 3-string version of your bar minor chord. So B minor, and then that is a what is that? E dominant 7. Here's what your kind of E bar chord looks like. E dominant 7, A. So you have this little loop of A, B flat diminished, B minor, E7, and so I think kind of you can get fancier by not playing the E string and then moving little things around in kind of getting into jazz voicings. And there is, let's see, in the music theory, I have learned to play now. Let me see here. Maybe I don't have any. Let me see. Oh, let me go to jazz and blues. Maybe it's in there. Yeah, so check out also in the jazz and blues section if you want to get into more advanced chords. Check out the jazz and blues section. That'll get you some stuff to work with. All right. Still on that screen. Cigar Box Nation. Cool. I'm assuming a cigar box instrument group of some sort. Oh, resonance violin is sweet. So like a Hardanger fiddle that's got the strings under the sympathetic strings that ring underneath the. So that's actually a Norwegian instrument, but then maybe you're thinking of the nickel harpa, which is the big one that you kind of play like this. Anyway, yeah, lots of. Maybe it's its own thing too. Resonance violin. Emil Waldken. Cool. I will definitely look that up. Apollo picks. I have not tried those, Edward. Daisy asked, do you have any techniques for remembering the chords for tunes? I can generally remember melodies and figure out chords with time, but when I go to play backup at a jam, my mind goes blank. Yeah, it's tricky. I think I don't have any great tips off the top of my head. I think, yeah, because, chord progressions won't stick into your head as, they're not as like melodic and singable as a melody, so they don't, at least for me, speaking for myself, they don't stick in my head and sort of say like, oh yeah. It's like, what is that? It could be anything. There's no melodic content. So I think the way that I got into it was I just kind of brute force learned, like memorized chord progressions to my first couple tunes. But then also as you play more, you'll just start to get a natural sense of what the right chord is. Like, I think a lot of it can just be trial and error, like assuming you're playing kind of in like the American folk tradition. There's so many 3-chord songs. Figure out what key it's in, start with that chord, and then it's a 50-50 chance. Like if you're in the key of G, somebody says, key of G, I can't think of a song off the top of my head. Wow, my mind is totally blank to songs right now. Road is Rocky. So you say, okay, G. We'll start with the G. Well, the road is rocky, won't be rocky long. Well, the road is rocky, won't be rocky long. Another man gone. I don't really know any of the words of that song. But, you can kind of say, okay, I'm starting with G. Is it going to be a C chord or is it going to be a D chord when it changes? Listen for the change, like, oh, it sounds like the chord just changed. Trial and error it, and you'll pretty quickly, if you go out and play with folks as regularly as you can, give it a couple months, and you'll really start to be able to say, hey, it sounds like this song is going to a C chord or going to a D chord from your G chord. And also, as you play, it's like, oh, we're going to do the like Rocky Road Blues or The Road is Rocky, whatever you want to call it. You'll start to remember like, oh yeah, this song has this feeling, and you'll just sort of start to get a sense and a little bit of kind of muscle memory around chord progressions. It's definitely a trickier thing because chord progressions don't stick in your mind the same way that melodies do. All right, let me charge through a couple of these. Raj, good to have you here. Nice, we got some good instrument suggestions. Domras are very cool on cool instruments for James' Luthier course. I assume, James, you're just going to sit around and make us all our dream instruments. Stephen from Virginia, good to have you here. Want to incorporate more syncopation into my soloing. Any practice techniques or licks you suggest to get it part of the routine? That's a great question. I would say listening, you know, like what is it that draws you to syncopation? Is there any particular examples of syncopation that you like to hear? Like, you know, what are really cool kind of syncopated rhythms that stick out to you? Figure out, you know, just figure out one, whether it's through transcribing music that really catches your ear, you know, if you're playing. Like, oh, I really like that. Ba, 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 ba. I think with syncopation, the thing that always helps me is to just like sing it or clap it, like ba 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 ba. And then, if assuming the tune is in 4, if it's in 6/8, it's a different progression or like picking pattern. But if it's in 4, you got to start out with down up the whole time. Down up, down up, down up, down up, down up, down up. Those are all 8th notes, and you're gonna turn it into your syncopation. So it becomes ba 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 ba. What is that? It's down up down 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 up down. One more. Down up down down up down. Really get that movement into your right hand, and then use your new favorite syncopation that you just learned how to kind of put together. Use that over and over and over again. You know, try it in every solo you take. Try to take entire solos when you're just sitting around for yourself. See, like, just do it every time. See where it works, see where it doesn't. And all that time spent trying it will really cement it into your playing. And then pick another one. And just kind of, I think a lot of that kind of interest in syncopation comes from, ooh, that was cool. What was that? Okay, I'm going to like figure out, that was a fun little rhythmic section. Let me figure out how to make that happen. And then kind of shoehorn it in everywhere you can imagine. And it's going to work better some places and worse other places. Hello from Barcelona. Good to have you here. Scroggins in rows, a cool example of playing with strings. The fiddle is tuned down an octave lower, I believe. So that must be Tristan Scroggins and somebody named Rose, with the last name Rose, maybe. Very cool. And that's, yeah, so some fiddle players, you can put kind of specific strings on your fiddle and have it tuned an octave lower than a normal fiddle, and it's very cool. I've seen a couple of those and kind of messed around with them. They're very fun. Yep, Ant-Man also suggesting looking at the circle of fifths, just so you know what your 1, 4, 5 chords are. Yeah, Daisy saying, I can hear the 1, 4, 5, but once I hear it, it's already happened. Yeah, that's just kind of the way it goes. Like, I think the skill to build is, like, now you can recognize them, and now the skill to build is, like, how many times that you hear them go through it once, and you can hear them. It's sort of like this mental game of, like, okay, I'm gonna continue to, like, try to play along, or you can even just stop and say, like, okay, first time through, I'm just gonna listen. Find those 1, 4, and 5. See if I can, like, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. And if you can hear that, I build little, like, grids in my head. Like, if you were looking at, like, a cheat sheet for a set of chords, just try to, like, visualize that sort of stuff in your head, like, what the song cycle looks like. And then it'll help you not get as lost. It'll help you remember what... It's a very interesting... I don't know exactly how to explain what goes on in my head, but I definitely build little chord progressions. And not to say that I like remember them the next time the song comes up a couple weeks later, but I think learning to integrate an outside chord progression into your hands kind of on the fly, the more you do it, the quicker you'll get. So you can just hear a melody in the same way that you like hear a melody. You're just doing a chord progression. It's like, okay, the first part goes and then you sort of, rather than doing that melodically, you're doing it chordally, where it goes, it's a 1, it's a 1, it's a 1 and a 5 1. It's a 1 1 1 and a 5 1. Whatever the example may be. Yes, Hardanger fiddle. Those things are so cool. Sharon Gilchrist's course on Peghead Nation has a nice way of explaining the relationship between melody and chords using the L shape. Yep, with double stops. That's really helped me. Cool. Yeah, there's lots of I've heard great things about Sharon's course on Peghead Nation, and all those other websites. Seems like lots of great information out there. Getting used to playing double stops with the melody really starts to train the ear and sharpen, and shapes burn the chord changes into your mind a little more. Totally. Ant-Man says, I learned a few jigs with the wrong picking pattern and having such a hard time retraining my brain. Wish there was an erase button. Yeah, if anyone ever invents the erase button, let us know, because we will make you rich and famous. Baritone violin. Oh, I didn't know it's for like the octave fiddle. Baritone violin. That makes sense, I guess. I've never heard of what... I think I've heard people call them like octave fiddles. Skanda from southern India says, was curious if you had the chance to explore Indian music. I have a little bit. I actually spent a year in Tamil Nadu at Kodaikanal International School in like 2007 and 8. And I learned to play the veena while I was there. Very cool instrument. And played a little bit of mandolin with some Indian music ensembles with my school. I wish I'd taken tabla while I was there. I had the opportunity, but I was like, oh, I just play melodies. I'll play veena. But I really wish I'd got some time with tabla. I don't play any of that music anymore. I've lost... It's been, over 10 years since I've played any Indian music, but I really enjoy listening to it and really value the time that I got to spend in India. Different strings that make the violin sound very cello-like. Yes, totally. Mini cellos. Yeah. Physically a violin with heavier strings. Yeah. The Lisa Ornstein is a great Quebecois fiddle player who also does some playing with those octave strings. You can look her up. It's very cool stuff. All right, let's play a little bit. I gotta head out pretty soon here. Let's play a little bit of the tune of the week, which is Real Montreal, and then we'll pick another tune to do next week, and then I'll head off. But thank you all for joining in. Looks like I've got the end of the chat. If I missed anything, definitely shoot it in the chat, and I'll try to get to it at the end here. But a little bit of Real Montreal. So this tune is in the key of G, and then key of D for the B part. G is the A part, D is the B part, and it's a real Quebec tune. Very scale and arpeggio based. Alright, so one, I'll play the melody, you play the chords, then we'll swap back and forth. If you've never heard this tune before, just see what you can pick up. It's great ear exercise. If you know the tune, see if you can branch out a little bit, do a little improvising, double stops, things like that. Here we go. Comes the B part. A2. B. I'll take it. Go for it. B part. One more time, let's both play the melody. I'll play harmony. B part. And again, I'll play harmony. Going out. All right. There we go. So, there was already a request. James said, how about Salt Creek for next week's jam? Sounds like a good idea. Let me just check and make sure we haven't done it. Seems like maybe you already have. James, but I will also look. Salt Creek. Ah, yes, let's do it. We haven't done it live. There's one on the website, but I haven't done it live yet. So next week, Salt Creek. Great tune. Thanks for the suggestion, James. Thank you all so much for the support. Thanks for hanging out on this fine Saturday morning for me, afternoon or evening, or could be any time really for you, seeing as we're all coming in from all over the world. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and see you all again soon. Bye-bye.